Okay, two things. So you've got your hypothalamus, and then on top of that you've got some circuits that deal with memory and emotion. So I'm going to run you through the hippocampus and the amygdala relatively quickly. So this is a theory that was basically put together by Sokolov, who was a Russian neuropsychologist back in 1962, but it's a variant of a theory that Norbert Wiener developed back in the 40s. So here's the idea. You wander through the world, and if you're in a place that you know, your memory systems, the hippocampus looks inside your memory systems to see what it is that you want to have happen based on your understanding of the world. Okay? So, you're in a motivated state, but you have certain expectations that make sense within that state. So the hippocampus is watching what you think is going to happen. But remember, that's motivated, it's not just expectation. And then the hippocampus is also looking at the world. Now, it's looking at an interpretation of the world because you can't help but interpret the world. But fundamentally, the hippocampus is looking inside you and outside you. And then it's seeing if what's happening inside and what's happening outside are the same. Which means you know what you're doing and you know where you are. And if they're the same, so if it detects a match, then the hippocampus inhibits the amygdala and the hypothalamus, roughly speaking. Now what it actually seems to do, there's a little circuit in your brainstem called the reticular activating circuit. And it's the thing that turns your brain on at night if you're sleeping and you hear a noise that you shouldn't hear. It's like, bang, you're awake. It's the reticular activating system way down in your brainstem, puts your cortex into a high arousal state, and poof, you're conscious. Now, the hippocampus tells the reticular activating system to basically remain calm as long as what you're expecting and desiring and what's happening are the same thing. So it's sort of like it's saying, I know you could jump up and freak out and run about, but you don't have to right now because everything's going according to plan. But as soon as there's a deviation, that's anomaly, say, then the hippocampus says, whoa, something's wrong here. And it disinhibits the reticular activating system. That turns on your emotions, especially your negative emotion. But it primes your positive emotion, and it primes some of the hypothalamic circuits too, or disinhibits them, because one way of solving the fact that something isn't going well is to switch to something else. So it's sort of like, there's a bunch of circuits on underneath you, but they're being held back, like horses in a racehorse. And then something that you don't expect happens, and the gates come up a little bit, because then you're prepared. Now a lot of that's negative emotion. Oh, you don't know where you are. But a lot of the rest of it is, be prepared to do whatever the hell you might need to do next. And so anomaly, the hippocampus detects anomaly, that's something unexpected, and then it disinhibits your lower circuitry, and it gets you ready to go. Now, the problem is, this one. How worried should you be when something that you don't expect happens? And the answer to that is, you don't know. That's a big problem with life, because, now, something went wrong. Here's the possibilities. You're not looking at the world right. So it's actually a perceptual problem, right? Like Gray, for example, believes that you just see the world, just like it is, because he's sort of a behaviorist. It's full of stimuli, you don't have to interpret them. That's wrong, you have to interpret them. So if something goes wrong, it might be that you're looking at things wrong. Your perceptual systems are out. It's unlikely, but sometimes that's the case. But forget that. Let's say that you're looking at the world correctly, and your inferences about what went wrong. What went wrong isn't a consequence of you misperceiving. It's a consequence of some stupid problem with your stupid plan. The problem is you don't know where the error is located. And that's why I think there's temperament. Sometimes if something unexpected happens, you should really freak out. Other times you should ignore it. But you can't tell which of those is true right away. So what happens is there's a distribution. When a little thing happens, some people really get upset about it, and other people hardly care at all. And sometimes the people who get really upset about it are right, and sometimes the people who don't care at all are right. And that's why there's variability in neuroticism. Okay, now, what you do when you're exploring is you start to decompose your plan, right? If you can manage it, if you're not so like gripped by anxiety that you're paralyzed, then you go into your plan and you think, well, am I a complete like loser, or is it some micro thing that's gone wrong? And then you can start to decompose it and reconstruct your plant. Okay.